Imagine leaving behind everything you once knew to travel to a country you do not know, leaving your home, your family, everything, for the slightest possibility that you would be able to provide them with a better life. These men risked it all and possibly saved the United States agricultural sector during one of the most crucial time periods in history. They were brave, they were strong and humble. They were those who worked with their arms. World War II. Adolf Hitler invades Poland in September of 1939, triggering a chain of deadly battles and attacks that would lead to the United States entering the war after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th of 1941. Fears of labor shortages in the United States due to the war crept through the American people. Men were sent off to fight in Europe, which led to a decrease of agricultural workers in America. It was estimated that the war would last a few more years. Americans entered desperation and began searching for new sources of labor to save their agricultural sector. Mexico, 1942. A country going through tough times, facing economic issues, violence, and social unrest. Mexico was facing a serious unemployment problem at the time of World War II and was in the process of trying to recompose itself. Mexico had always been a source of temporary cheap labor for the United States in the past. However, relationships between the two countries had been tense since the Mexican-American War of 1846. The Mexican government was not interested in supplying workers for the United States in the beginning, and it took some convincing on the U.S. side. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, Mexico declared war on the Axis. Mexico saw a chance to contribute to the Allied war effort by providing the United States with their workers. This brought about the Braceros program. The Braceros program was created in 1942, known in its earlier years as the Wartime Mexican Labor Program. Contracts were made under the supervision of the Mexican government between the employer and the worker. All workers had guaranteed transportation, living expenses, and repatriation. Children under the age of 14 were not allowed to work. No deductions were to be made from the workers' salaries, and they were to be paid around $3 a day. They were not to be discriminated. Americans did not want any diseases to be brought into their country, so braceros were fumigated like animals under their owners' orders. Thousands worked in railroads, infrastructures for the transportation of food, and other supplies needed for the war and after it. The first 1,500 braceros left Mexico on September 29th of 1942 and arrived to work in the sugar fields of California in December of that same year. Farmland in California grew around 21% between 1940 and 1964. Braceros changed social interactions in California, but also helped preserve them. They were the main source that prevented the economic and social bankruptcy of California. Back in Mexico, agricultural associations in the northern Mexican states protested against their people moving northward. They complained about not having enough people to pick their crops. Social problems started to arise due to the amount of people waiting to cross the border north. The separation of families often caused problems for the authorities as well. As the program progressed in the U.S., braceros started to lead strikes against their contractors due to the harsh ways in which they were treated and the poor wages they received. Farmers held tremendous power over the braceros, so oftentimes problems were resolved with a "shut up or go back" as an answer. In June of 1946, 400 braceros from 3 Nampa area labor camps went on strike. Over 600 workers from other sugar company labor camps joined the 1946 strike. Even though the government set rules on how these men were supposed to be treated, oftentimes their contractors had rules of their own. Farmers began to disregard the contracts made with bracero workers even before they arrived. They didn't receive the wages they were promised or the respect they deserved as people. Some were treated so badly that they almost even considered quitting. They were considered America's most disadvantaged workers. The program started to become a system for exploiting unlimited low-wage labor from Mexico. Not all of them, however, experienced the same hardships as others. Braceros in Washington and Oregon were better paid, and the farmers were more cooperative in negotiating wages with them. In order to raise their wages, however, braceros had to work 15-hour-long days, 7 days a week. After World War II ended, farmers fought in Congress to keep the program running. It was doubted that it would have survived past 1961 were it not for the demand to keep it. On November 1960, CBS aired a documentary called Harvest of Shame, and it convinced President Kennedy that the program was affecting the wages, working conditions, and job opportunities of American agricultural workers. Americans that were against the program assumed a moral stance against imported labor, and the number of workers shrunk from 473,000 to 195,000 in the year of 1959. The farmers eventually lost the fight in Congress to preserve the program, and on December 31st of 1964, the program was ended. 22 years of bracero contracting finally ended. Congress destroyed a program that had become a crucial part of southwestern agriculture. Braceros were transnationals, meaning they moved between two countries. They anchored their lives in both Mexico and the U.S. Even after the program ended, racial inequalities did not disappear, and those who had supported it in the beginning decided it fueled illegal immigration and therefore it weakened the country. The braceros explored a new territory, one that promised them a better life for them and their families. The Americans encountered a strong and dedicated source of labor that was able to uphold their agricultural sector during and after World War II. Both exchanged lasting memories and experiences that would help shape the future of the United States.